What I'm saying is the bike was the place that I went that all that disappeared. All the noise stopped and I just got lost in it. And I'm glad I kept going because in that next year, like being able to dive into riding that way, like really helped me. I never wanted to stop. I can see why my family might have wanted to. There's two things that pop up on my Instagram feed all the time. And one of them is the goon riding video from early on. And the other one is the battle with Stu. I can honestly say that was one of the funnest races I ever raced. We battled hard. The second moto we battled, but the first moto, it was like...
It was on.
It was on.
Gypsy.
So we'll switch gears a little bit and maybe we'll start talking about some of the more fun parts of your career. So one of the epic races that I think is like a pretty dope Trey Canard moment was the Millville battle with old Jimmy.
Yeah, dude, I hear more. There's two things that pop up on my Instagram feed all the time, and one of them is the goon riding video from like early on, and the other one is the battle with Stu. And dude, I can honestly say that was one of the funnest races I ever raced. Like, I finished that first moto where we battled hard. The second moto we battled, but the first moto, it was like...
It was on.
It was on, you know? Like, we touched wheels in the air. Like, it was... We were, like, all over the place trying to win that race. And I remember getting second and just, like, dude, I was still smiling. Because I was like, one, I just raced James Stewart. Like 10-year-old me is, like, high-fiving me. Like, good job, dude. Yeah, like, that's James Stewart. But two, like I was still trying to battle for my first win, and it was just fun, man. It was fun.
Yeah, that is like, if you want to show somebody motocross, like that's one of the motos where you'd show them, and it's like so deep into the race, and you guys are just still sending it, you know. And I think as I watch it back now, like I watched it last night actually, and as I like watch it back more and more, I think you can really see like you pushed James hard. Like I think he was pretty tired by the end of that moto.
Yeah, he was doing kind of everything, and it was one of those days I was just feeling spunky, man. I don't know why. There's some days you just wake up and you're like, I'm ready, and that was one of them. And dude, I was pulling everything I had, and he was just crafty, man. But the funniest part about that whole day is I thought I won the overall. And so in my head, you know, we went 1-2 the first moto, the second moto, Dungy won. So in my head, Dungy got like 7th the first moto. So all I got to do is, in my head, is all I have to do is beat Stu. And so I came across the finish line like I think I might have rolled the finish line like both hands in the air. Like, what an idiot. You know, I go to the tent and I'm just like ecstatic, you know, and the team walks over to me and they're just like flat. And I'm like, what is wrong with you guys? I just won my first overall. And they're like, no, you got second. You're such an idiot.
Oh, dude, that's so good. And to do it at Millville, I think like that's a real motocross track there. Like that place is no joke. I was even looking like when I was watching last night. I mean, the main downhill, like it was even super lipped up, and you were like jumping, like just the momentum you would have had coming down that hill, and how rough it was. The dirt was just mint. Like it just looked like you boys were able to just absolutely send it.
Yeah, it was cool. I think like the track was not so deep that day that it was like slot cars. You see a lot of slot car racing now, and I think I understand it, trying to slow guys down and trying to, you know, make it rough, but it was so fun to be able to move around, like in it, and I think it made the racing like so exciting because you could start wide and go in, and like if you watch the race, it's like we are like
everywhere
the whole race, and it was fun. I loved it.
Is that one of those days where you just don't feel like there's a limit? Like you can just...
Yeah, it's all it comes easy. Like I know people. I've never had the experience of like time slowing down. I know that some people, when they enter that flow state, they say like, you know, baseball players say they can like see the
stitching on the ball.
Yeah. I've never really had that moment. I've had that moment though where it all feels easy. The only national that I won both motos was on the 450 was Utah in 2014. I remember thinking like, dude, something's wrong with these other guys. Like they aren't even trying, because it just seemed like I was just like cruising, you know, it just seemed easy that day. So that's been my experience with like flow state, or if whatever you want to call it, is it just like, it seemed like just a regular all day where I was just out for a joyride, you know? And then there's been days where it's like, you feel like you can't do anything right. You know, it's like, so I appreciate I only had it like that feeling like probably 5 or 6 times, but it was a really cool feeling.
Man, it's so funny. I mean, it's one of the things I'm like all borderline obsessed with, I guess, is that feeling. And like I link it back quite a bit to, you know, meditation and I guess what you're sort of trying to get in that state. And I think there's a book in there at some point I'll probably try and write to like articulate it. But, you know, you hear so many people that are like, I'm like, oh, you know, do you do any meditation? Like, nah, I go surfing every morning, or I go running. Or I'm like, oh yeah, like it's like the same thing. Like you can have that, but you just don't need a surfboard. You don't, you know, and but it's crazy when you can get like I think that's what people really get addicted to, is like it's just chasing that feeling where it's like everything is crazy easy. It's like you're doing but not thinking. Like you kind of referenced that at the very start of the podcast as well. You know, it's like once you start thinking, it's all over. But I think for the average guy, it's like all they're doing is thinking when they're riding. You know, but it's like that's the state that we're all trying to get to, and it's like if you can get to that state for 5 minutes on a ride on Saturday with the boys, or you know, like then it just makes your whole week, and you realize that you don't have all the problems always that you always think you do, and then it like gives you that new energy. You're like, this week I can get through this week.
Life is good.
I'll be back on the bike on Saturday.
It's you know, I do some meditation just like as a good discipline, you know, like that feeling. There's a feeling, I think, if you've probably been meditating for a while, like where you feel your breath and it's like you can like watch it and you're like, whoa, like I'm seeing what's happening right now. And I think that's probably a good comparison to that flow state. It's like, you know, I'm scrubbing a jump and I'm like almost like, wow, like that was so easy. And you're just like watching me? You're watching it happen, and it's really hard to replicate that, especially amongst the pressure of it all. Because, you know, meditation is like helpful for me, like finding that mindfulness. You know, part of my traumatic response is to disassociate, which, you know, you kind of like there, but you're not. You're kind of like over here. And that's kind of how I dealt with things a lot. And meditation was a great tool for me to kind of like pull back into the present moment.
Feel what you're feeling.
Yeah, and exactly that's exactly what riding is. That's exactly what surfing is. It's like that same moment where like everything's in perfect kind of unison.
We're excited to announce the launch of our new membership site, gypsytales.com, packed with exclusive content and perks that you won't find anywhere else. This is your chance to become a part of the Gypsy Gang. And as a special bonus, if you sign up to an annual membership, you'll be entered into the draw to win our custom-built TC125. Gypsy Gang.